case to prove you are a man.
But I know it's
Mystery having one past mile that sea. Purpose has to talk to you. Happiness, this much you do. Soon the fun of weeks for miles that seas. Unseen, 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 but seen. We're begging you to put them all in jail. Must be, his blows must be. Lucifer is passage down to fail. Tragedy. So unseen. This one is free. No found but
Are you still playing in the band? Are you still doing music?
yeah.
Can you watch? Yeah. Okay, friends, if we can come a little bit closer, I'll let you know what's going on. We're going to continue later on with music. A great job, Larry. And here are a few words of explanation. We have been, as a ministry, feeding the poor for the past 26 years. And after 10 years of a very heavy war that was waged against us by the city of Calgary, then under the leadership of Dave Bronconia, finally we made a deal after 10 years, over 100 court cases, and over 300 citations and about 12 arrests. We made peace with the city of Calgary, or they made peace with us, and they have given us permits to feed the poor here. As I showed you, the Olympic Plaza is fenced, and they are building another dumb building that Calgary doesn't need, wasting $1 billion, especially now in a time of great difficulties. They have decided to do their petty projects. So we were asked to stop feeding the poor, and we did. We moved to the other side of the City Hall, where, of course, that's the place that you want to be. City Hall is a place that we pay for. It's paid by taxpayers' money, and it's a place where you can voice your dissatisfaction with the government. I mean, I don't see another place, a better place than City Hall. You got some grief with the government, you go to City Hall, you organize a peaceful assembly of like-minded individuals, and you let the public know what's going on. That's historically how it's done properly. Of course, if you're living in free and democratic society. But that's no longer the case now in Alberta. We are being ruled by tyrants. The premier is a tyrant, and the mayor, Jody Gondek, is a tyrant as well. So we're being ruled by tyrants that told us a few days ago that we are not allowed To never mind feeding the poor, we are not allowed to even congregate at City Hall, which is our municipal plaza. We're not allowed to assemble. Not only they are telling us we are not allowed to feed the poor, they're telling us that we cannot even come and oppose them in a peaceful manner unless we have a special permission from City Hall. So what are our options? Well, we can crawl into a hole and die. That's what they want. That's what Satan wants. Or we can stand up, rise up, and say, listen, people, this is our country. This is not just your country, this is our country as well. We pay you to serve us. And if you're not willing to serve us, then resign, and we'll find someone that will. Resign, all of you. And we will elect people that love this country, people that love the poor, not just the rich, but people that love everyone. People that want to stand for all of our rights, not just few rights here and there. The letter I received from Colleen Sinclair, the city lawyer, states that if we go to the municipal plaza for a peaceful assembly, we will all be arrested, all of us. Everyone that comes, organizes, and everyone that participates in a peaceful assembly at our City Hall will be arrested. That's what the letter says. So we have no option but to stage our peaceful assembly here until the city of Calgary will come to their senses. Until then, I just do not know what to do. So, we will be doing this every single week, 1:30 p.m., every single week until we have a sit-down with the city representatives to reverse their unconstitutional bylaw, which is against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So we have a special guest today. Every week we'll have a different guest, and then we'll rotate. I'm going to ask Shane to come. This is a very amazing man, a patriot. I have seen this man many times, fighting for our rights, standing. You see, for a man like him, it doesn't matter if it's cold or hot. What matters is that he believes that it's his God and state-given duty to stand for what's right. So we don't go by feelings. I don't feel like coming today because it's too cold. No, we come because we care. We care what is happening to our beloved nation. We care what they've done to our city of Calgary. We care. And until God gives us a champion to replace those devils, we have to oppose them by exposing them. And that's what we're doing, and we're doing it peacefully and lawfully. Peacefully and lawfully. We must oppose them following the law, and the law is very clear. We can have peaceful assembly. We can. That's the law. So, he's going to share with us what is on his heart. Don't be discouraged. I remember when we started the rallies with 6 of us. Remember, Larry? 7 of us, 10 of us, 15 of us. I remember when we had 20, I thought it's a revival. And then we had 100, remember? And then 1,000. Remember, before my arrest, we had 15 to 20,000 people that had enough. I believe we can build on this. Every week, let's start building the movement again and oppose those devils, because they're not stopping. That's the sad part. They're not stopping. They're not stopping with the crazy laws against us. They're not stopping with raising taxes, which are killing us, destroying us. They're not stopping with the jobs. They're jobbing our people, children. knowing that it's killing them, and they're still doing it. This must stop. The persecution and prosecution of the freedom movement people, of Christians, must stop immediately. Immediately. So, going to give you a mic, and George the Fluffy.
Gotcha. Excellent. All right, so we're here to occupy the sphere of public protest. So important. Artur Pawlowski, thank you very much for starting the first Saturday of many to come, and Art is absolutely right. We do have a right to protest in the legal framework of our Constitution. The Charter, Section 2, guarantees freedom of thought, opinion, and expression, which is exactly the language Justin Trudeau targets. February of 2022, and his famous, this fringe minority? These people coming to Ottawa holding unacceptable views and expressing them. And there we have a Justin Trudeau basically admiring the basic dictatorship of basic China since November of 2013, and now some 9 years later those chickens came home to roost, and it is authoritarian rule by decree. And it's a great statement that the Parliament didn't shut down in revolt against a Prime Minister who is now telling us it is the business of government to determine which views are correct and which are incorrect, and in the name of securing Canada's peace, he unlawfully seized emergency powers. Why? To roll out state violence against the peaceful ranks of protesters. Let's ask ourselves the question, what's happening in Coutts in February of 2022? On the 14th of February, the RCMP, I call them the Sicherheitsdienst des Bundes, an organ of pure state security at the national level, had chosen their targets, 13 persons, including the Coutts Four, Chris Carver, Jerry Morin, Chris Lysick, Tony Olenek, including the Coutts Three, George Jansen, Chris Van Herk, and Marco Van Hugenbos, and Joanne Person, and others. And we had an RCMP spokeswoman in uniform talking on Global News. What did she say on the 14th of February? She said, we are investigating conspiracy to attempt to commit murder. She misspoke. She got the statute wrong. It's not conspiracy to attempt to commit murder. It's conspiracy to commit murder. Then she said, this absolutely happened. And I'm not going to talk to anyone who's not willing to listen to facts. What a miracle of efficiency that the RCMP were able to crack a case of conspiracy to commit murder unlike any other case I know of. No dead bodies. You look at the Charles Manson conspiracy to commit murder in 1969. You have plenty of dead bodies. Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger. That's how you find out there was a conspiracy to commit murder. This was an RCMP fantasy of violence coming from peaceful protesters. On the 13th of February, the RCMP rolled out their tactical team against women and children. And Tony Olenek was standing outside Smuggler's Saloon videotaping the RCMP in their tactical SWAT gear, uploading videos to YouTube, asking why are they doing this? What did the Mounties do just days earlier? They vandalized farm equipment. They did this to provoke and agitate a response from peaceful protest, because the biggest problem the RCMP task force faced in Coutts was that it was a peaceful protest, and they had no means of acquiring a pretext to give Justin Trudeau the political capital for seizing emergency powers in Ottawa. They arrested Tony Olenek as he was videotaping them outside a Smuggler's Saloon on a charge of conspiracy to commit murder. After all, this is the 13th of February, and the next day, an RCMP spokeswoman will tell us this absolutely happened. No, they arrested him for mischief. which has become the government's favorite word for peaceful protest. A judge issued the RCMP a warrant to search the trailers and the environs of the Joanne Person property. She was a resident of Coots. What was the basis for that search warrant? Were they going to find evidence of conspiracy to commit murder in the trailers? No, they were looking for evidence of mischief. How dopey does the Sicherheitsdienst have to be? And how dopey does a judge have to be to believe they're going to find evidence of mischief in the trailers? The mischief, according to the government, is the 300 rigs parked along Highway 4. The mischief is 200 people peacefully protesting outside Smuggler's Saloon. It was a blockade for less than 2 days. A spontaneous convoy to Coots resulted in a temporary blockade replaced by one lane being open in both directions. The only blockade in existence on the 14th of February is the one set up at Milk River by the Sicherheitsdienst des Bundes, also known as the RCMP. So, can someone explain to me the RCMP tactical team, the Bronze team, ordered to roll by Superintendent Kevin Konecki, a man sent to Coots on the 7th of February in order to coordinate the timings of arrests of political targets to coincide with Justin Trudeau seizing emergency powers. You might remember Kevin Konecki from his voir dire testimony in June of 2023 at the pretrial session. He was asked the question, what was the trail of evidence leading your Bronze teams to the middle trailer where they found Tony Olenek, Chris Carbert, and Chris Lysak? What did Kevin Konecki say? This senior superintendent of the RCMP, I don't remember the trail of evidence leading to the trailers. We were in a crisis. We were exhausted. We can't keep records during a crisis. Blood was in the air. I'm tempted to believe, Konecki, that the Sicherheitsdienst des Bundes is that ineffective. But I also happen to know this was a clever lie. Why do I say that? Because under his statement, I don't remember the trail of evidence, lies the premise that there was a trail of evidence. Had there been one, he would have provided all proof. But I ask you the question, how do you have a trail of evidence of mischief leading from the protest site to the trailers? What were they expecting to find based on a search warrant looking for mischief? What is a search warrant required to do? There's an affidavit sworn to the judge demonstrating that this crime has actually already happened. We're looking for evidence of it, or it's about to happen. They already knew the mischief was happening. What were they going to find in the trailers? Were they going to find little figurines and little model trucks along Highway 4? My one major protest against the political correctness of Canada, in addition to mass murder, in addition to warping law, does it have to be so dopey? You never know where the incompetence ends and the malice begins. So we're looking on the 14th of February, a miracle of efficiency, because just 24 hours earlier, they arrested Tony Olenek for mischief, not for conspiracy to commit murder, not for possession of a weapon with a dangerous purpose. What a miracle of efficiency. Because the RCMP spokeswoman on the 14th said this absolutely happened. And by the way, she contradicts herself. It's an ongoing investigation. Oh, I thought it absolutely happened. Why do you need to investigate it if it absolutely happened? Just bring in all the evidence. And then she said, I'm not going to discuss this with someone who doesn't want to listen to the facts. Isn't it interesting that an RCMP spokeswoman doesn't know you don't discuss facts during an ongoing investigation? Who's running this country? I'll tell you who's running this country: intellectual lightweights. And I've said it more than once. When we look at the judicial system, when I sit in a courtroom, I see moral depravity and I see intellectual depravity coexisting. It's the nature of political correctness. We don't promote the best and brightest. We promote those willing to conform, those willing to be complicit in the cover-up of our government's many crimes. I want to move towards the judge, D.B. Lebrens. On the 9th of September, after a 2.5-year pre-trial and trial of what became the Coots 2, Tony Olenek and Chris Carpet, 9th of September, he sentenced them to 6 and 6.5 years at face value. He did this for mischief. I'll tell you, there's something wrong with that one. And he did it, sorry, I have to correct that, not for mischief. For that, they got 6 months. He gave them 6 or 6.5 years for possession of a weapon with a dangerous purpose. And it is true that the 3 gentlemen living in the middle trailer had their personal firearms with them, hidden out of view in their temporary place of residence. Where would they like them to have been? Should they have left them on the highway? Tony Olenek had what he called a gopher gun, a .22 rifle, and a shotgun. And Kevin Konetsky is saying thousands of rounds and hundreds of guns. It was a fantasy, an RCMP fantasy, cooking up this fable of an armed insurrection. Oh, they had so much evidence of that, they charged him with mischief on the 13th of February. Why these 13 targets out of 300 truckers there? Thank God the 300 truckers were there. I don't actually think it was mischief because they had a lawful excuse. It says right in the statute, anyone without legal authority or lawful excuse. What was their lawful excuse? The mass murder called COVID. The mass murder called safe and effective. The mass murder called get the jab and get the job done. The mass murder called 2 shots and back to normal. And Justice D.B. Lebrens, in the sentencing argument, in spite of the fact that the jury acquitted the Coots 2 of conspiracy to commit murder, I'm letting you know that is what he sentenced them for. Here's your typical possession of weapon for a dangerous purpose. A man has a loaded handgun in his car. He's driving down the street. He rolls down his window. He points the gun at a pedestrian. There's the expression of a dangerous purpose. Pedestrian calls the police. Downstream, the police stop him, search the car, loaded handgun under his seat. They've got a witness. You pointed your gun at someone. You expressed a dangerous purpose. 3 days in jail. Tony Olenek and Chris Carpenter are serving the remainder of their sentence in penitentiary. That's penitentiary time. Any sentence exceeding 2 years less a day. Their parole officers are telling them, we never seen anyone charged and convicted of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose serving penitentiary time. So what we know is D.B. Lebrens ignored a jury acquittal, and he sentenced those men for conspiracy to commit murder in a case where there's no dead bodies. I'm going through the case history on my Facebook page, Radio Shorter. I'm looking at R versus Havishar next week. That was more than 10 years ago in BC. 6 dead bodies. Plenty of evidence. Plenty of witnesses to say, I saw Havishar, I saw that man. They were meeting in that apartment. They were discussing planning to murder so-and-so. Conspiracy to commit murder has specific targets, names, places. They plan it out and they carry it out is how we find out it happens. The contrast between the case of the Coots 2 and actual cases of conspiracy to commit murder is so startling. It is a depraved contrast that comes out of the minds of Crown prosecutors like Stephen Johnston and judges like D.B. Lebrens and RCMP officers. Superintendent Kevin Konetsky, the man who lied on the stand when he said he didn't remember the trail of evidence, promoted the chief superintendent. Now he's retired. It's my understanding that he's training RCMP officers to do what? To lie, to warp law, and to be told, you'll get away with it. Because when the redacted evidence proving you were in collusion with a Crown prosecutor comes to light, the judge will bury it, just like David Lebrenz did. But there's a very interesting thing D.B. Lebrenz said in his sentencing argument, and it goes like this. He said, and I quote, Tony Olenek and Chris Carbert possessed weapons for the express purpose of using them against officers at a time and place of their choosing. Do you know what that sounds like? Conspiracy to commit murder. R versus Havicher. They murdered a man and 5 other residents of a building at a time and place of their choosing. Chris Carbert, Tony Olenek, Jerry Marin, Chris Lysak did none of that. On the day of the arrests, the 3 men living in the middle trailer weren't even together. Tony Olenek was outside videotaping the bronze team, the tactical team, parading around in their body armor and assault rifles in front of women and children. Chris Carbert was lying sick in bed in the middle trailer. Chris Lysak was elsewhere. There's no community of intent. I have to question D.B. Lebrenz's reasoning. If he believes what he's saying, folks, when that man was appointed to the bench, they didn't choose the sharpest knife in the kitchen. They didn't choose the serrated knife for cutting bread. They got themselves a butter knife. And what does a loaf of bread look when you try to cut it with a butter knife? It looks exactly like the law and language and logic look once Crown Prosecutor Stephen Johnston and D.B. Lebrenz are finished with it. Mangled and imbalanced and an abomination. So D.B. Lebrenz found him guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. He diluted the statute a little bit, but we can see the outline of what he's saying. Possessing a weapon for the express purpose of using them against officers at a time and place of their choosing. And he altered the language of the statute 465 to cram it in to where it doesn't belong. Possessing a weapon for a dangerous purpose, which, by the way, I'll disagree with the jury verdict on that one. What dangerous purpose do you express when you keep your weapon buried out of sight in a trailer? So, that's where we are on the Coots 2. 2 men sentenced for a crime they were never even convicted of. So we move forward. And this is just one example. I was going to talk a little bit about City Hall. I could have done that. I'll just mention this quickly. When it comes to vaccine injuries, the federal government a long time ago acknowledged it. It's called the Vancouver. It's called the Vaccine Injury Support Program. You can go to their website. It's been there for quite a while. There's some inherent good to that acknowledgement, and I'm just going to quote from it. The purpose of the Vaccine Injury Support Program is to ensure that all people in Canada who have experienced a permanent or serious injury as a result of receiving a Health Canada authorized vaccine administered in Canada on or after December 8, 2020, that they have fair and timely access to financial support. Okay, I got a couple things to say about that. Vaccine authorized? How about vaccine enforced? How about criminal extortion? How about get the jab or lose your job and your career and your family and your home? Number one. Number two, fair and timely access to financial support. That cannot be their purpose. And I'll tell you why, and I'll give you one name. Her name is Kayla. She lives in Ontario. She was paralyzed by Moderna's mRNA shot. Paralyzed from the waist down. Lives in a wheelchair now. No control of her bowels, of her bladder. Can't use her hands. Can't use her arms that well. Only 2 digits of each hand are working. She's out there. She's on X. She's on social media speaking up. She applied almost immediately. Over the 3 years that the program has existed, she's gone through 6 caseworkers. It's been more than a year since they've even contacted her. That's what our government calls fair and timely access to financial support. And I'll mention one more thing, the Kerry Sakamoto class action suit. Kerry Sakamoto was a woman who mixed doses, Pfizer and Moderna. She has facial paralysis, palsy-like symptoms, constant pain. The drugs leave her losing her memory. She's part of a class action suit championed by Rath and Company. That's Jeffrey Rath, a lawyer here right in this city, battling against the governments of Canada and Alberta. And I want to make this something very clear to the public who believed that the government was your friend, the government was your doctor, the government was telling you to take these safe and effective experimental injections, that everything would be okay. Well, what is the government saying now? I'll tell you what they're saying through their lawyers as I sit in that courtroom. Your Honor, there is no duty of care between Dina Hinshaw. We're not responsible. We're not your physician. There's no proximity between government and the taxpayer. Maybe in hindsight we can see that mixing and the vaccines themselves caused injuries, but we're not responsible. That's their message now. That's a far cry from safe and effective. That's a moral victory. But the problem right now is, for example, the Alberta government has instructed their lawyer, don't let this go to certification. In a civil case, in a class action suit, certification is like the pre-trial phase. They will look at the evidence and see if the suit could even succeed and go to trial. What is the government of Canada and the government of Alberta saying? We want a motion to strike before the certification process begins. Why? So none of the evidence will be looked at. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And this City Hall proudly partnered with TELUS to jab people on 8th Avenue. So we're going to move forward. We've got to occupy the sphere of public protest. It's so important. Thanks so much for coming out today. Thank you, Art Pawlowski, for asking me to speak. God bless you as we move forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Well, I'll see you next week. 1:30 Saturday. We have to do something. We have to educate people. We have to move in a sphere of the public to let the people really know what's going on in their own country. We are being run. Careful, guys. Careful. Careful. We're being run by traitors and murderers. And that's the federal government, that's the provincial government with Smith, and that's, of course, the City Hall with Jody Gondek, the witch of the West, the tyrant of Calgary. So keep spreading the word around, keep educating people, and Larry, we're going to have a few more songs, and see you next time.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize it was that close to it.
Alternative right, Scotty fake book with E. Well, it's alternative right. True stuff, say what you please. Well, it's alternative right. Season the bullhorn so sweet. Well, it's alternative right. Tweet and I'll let you all tweet. You can sit and wait for liberals to change. Just hold the line. That tyrant's mouth surely can't remain. Just hold the line. Sit around and wonder what traitors will bear from up electric chairs. But it's alternative right. Cutting Facebook with ease. But it's alternative right. Truth of say what you please. But it's alternative right. Season the bullhorn so sweet. Well, it's all turning right. Wouldn't I let you all tweet? Truckers cruising down that road a ways. Let's relive those good old convoy days. Canada walk ever reform its ways. You don't overstay. But it's all turning right. Good in the Facebook release. But it's all turning right. True songs to say what you please. But it's all turning right. Season the bull hopes so sweet. But it's all turning right. Wouldn't I let you all tweet?
Next time.
Don't have to be ashamed of friends we keep. Just hold the line. We're so happy. Just stand on the street. Just hold the line. Almighty God, He is on our side. Just hold the line. He will turn the tide. But it's all turning right. Following the 17th letter. But it's all turning right. How the Italian speaks, but it's all turning right. Q tells us what's a coming, but it's all turning right. Watching the deltas amaze, all turning right. Skirting Facebook and East. True songs to say what you please, but it's all turning right. Seizing the bullhorn so sweet, but it's all turning right. Wouldn't I let you all free? I'm glad you came out.
Well, hello, friends. We're going to start our political rallies again. And we're going to give an alternative for Albertans. So go to Solidarity Movement of Alberta, Solidarity Movement of Alberta, and we're going to revive that again. Obviously, all the ruling parties are not interested in fighting for us and protecting us, so we must do something. We can no longer just sit and do nothing. We have to engage the enemy. They hate you, they hate the people, they hate our children. So Solidarity Movement of Alberta.ca. Solidarity Movement of Alberta.ca. Okay, God bless you and see you next time.